Good morning, Kitchissippi. It is Saturday, April the 22nd. This is a video version of the 91st Kitchissippi newsletter. I'll be publishing that by email at some point this weekend. If you're not subscribed, it does contain a lot more links and details about the issues that we'll be covering. I would encourage you to get on board at kitchissippiward.ca. Fairly packed newsletter this week, so let's jump right in. The first major item in the newsletter this week, of course, is the April the 25th, that's Tuesday, meeting that we're hosting on removing the parking and adding bike lanes onto Spencer from Western through to Holland. That received some excellent press coverage yesterday. I'm looking forward to hearing more feedback. We've been getting a lot of email in the office, relatively evenly split, so it'll be interesting to hear what residents have to say at that open house. Subscribe to the newsletter and click on there for more details. That'll be held at 241 Northwestern. That's the former Northwestern United Church, now an annex to the Ottawa Mosque. Also in the newsletter this week, the Wellington Diner, as I think most residents are aware, has applied for a rezoning that will allow it to operate a patio at its property. There is an open house to take a look at that proposal. That's going to be held from 6 until 8 p.m. That's at the Hintonburg Community Center. There will be a presentation starting at 6:30. Also in the newsletter this week, a reiteration of the items that I covered last week for the Committee of Adjustment. There are two that are going to be on the next committee docket. The first is at 341 Tweedsmuir, where the owner is proposing to demolish the structure, sever the property, and build two 3-story, 3-unit buildings on there. They need a few variances for that. And also in the newsletter at 540 Cole, the owner is seeking to demolish the existing structure and build two detached homes on the property. I don't yet have the results of the last Committee of Adjustment hearing, but I understand that this patio application did pass. Also in the newsletter, a reiteration of the call that is out there right now for new board members for the new Municipal Services Corporation that has been formed to manage the markets. We need a board of directors that brings a bunch of skill sets, agriculture, business, marketing, events, to that new corporation, which will be in charge of running the Parkdale and Byward markets beginning January 1st, 2018. I have a link to the job description and to the skill sets that they're seeking. I hope that citywide, and particularly in Kitchissippi Ward, will see lots of interest in doing that service. Also in the newsletter this week, just a quick note, the Ontario Music Fund was created a couple of years ago at Queen's Park in order to help bolster Ontario's music industry. There are a number of recipients, a number of whom have some great Kitchissippi connections, who were funded under the most recent round of that fund. I've put some of those names in there, links to more information on a blog post. The mayor has commented with how positively he views those announcements, especially in light of the momentum coming out of Juno's week. Take a look on the blog for more details. The link is in the newsletter. Also, I'm standing in Reid Park. There is a substantial sum of money that was set aside in the last term of council to redo the park. The plans are in place. A lot of the construction will get underway this year. There is an update on the blog. People have been asking us what the construction schedule will look like this year. There's an update on the blog for that, and there is an open house coming up that'll be held on Wednesday, May the 10th, from 6 until 8 at the Hintonburg Community Center. That's at 1064 Wellington, to take a look at the plans and understand what the construction schedule is. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Also in the newsletter this week, I have pop-up hours next week. Those are going to be held on Thursday, April the 27th. I'll be in the lobby of the Great Canadian Theatre Company at the corner of Holland and Wellington West. I'll be there from 12:30 until 3:30. Pop on by, chat about whatever city or Kitchissippi issues are on your mind. This week at City Hall, a bunch of committee meetings on which I sit. On Monday, I actually am going down to Queen's Park with Councillor McKenney to address the committee that is looking at Bill 65. Bill 65 would give the city authorization to use photo radar automated enforcement, as well as set some new slower default speed limits. I am very much in favor of that legislation. Councillor McKenney and I are road tripping down to make our views known to the committee as they explore that bill. On Tuesday, Planning Committee is coming up. It's a pretty packed agenda. A lot of heritage items, including the Somerset House on that one. I've got a link to the full agenda in the newsletter. There's also an anomaly report coming up that has a few different Ward 15 issues on it. Anomaly reports are intended to address administrative matters, tidying up the zoning. I've had a good look at that, and there isn't anything that is raising a red flag for me. On Wednesday, we have City Council. It is a very short agenda, dealing mostly with some of the planning items that we dealt with a week and a half ago or so. The main one that I'm looking at is for a controversial mid-rise in the Glebe at 900 Bank. That's the beer store near Lansdowne Park. I voted against that at Planning Committee, largely on the basis of an 8-story wall immediately adjacent to the residential low-rise that is right next to it. The developer has come back. They've added some new step backs in response to some of the concerns that they heard at committee. I'm mulling over whether or not those changes are enough to garner my support. And then on Thursday, the IT subcommittee, of which I am the vice chairman, is meeting. That's got basically a work plan update on it. Lots of information if you're interested in how the city is using technology, about what's coming up. The key item there for me actually is going to be a one line item in there. The city is going to be providing councillors with more tools in order to be able to do live streaming, particularly on Facebook Live. My point to staff in the agenda review, and I'll reiterate it at committee, is that it's great to have a lot of new tools. For example, at Tom Brown Arena, we recently streamed the LRT detour meeting and put an archive of that up online. A lot of residents have found that useful to catch up on what was discussed at the meeting if they couldn't attend. Unfortunately, Tom Brown Arena doesn't have Wi-Fi, and I had to stream that meeting tethered to my phone. I do have a personal phone only. I don't have a city phone, and racked up some pretty good charges doing that. So while it's important to look at providing some of these new consultation tools to councillors, some of the basic connectivity issues in our facilities need to be addressed as well. I have just as a few clips of interest at the end of this video. One of the things that we looked at Transit Commission last week was a big new PR campaign that is intended to help residents get up to speed with where we are on LRT. LRT is fundamentally going to change the way we get around the city on transit when that opens sometime in 2018. OC Transpo is beginning to put out materials to talk to residents about what those changes will mean for them. Here's a sample video that you'll see more and more on various social media and other electronic platforms. Also this week, I thought I'd include a clip. I didn't have it last week. The Alliance to End Homelessness released its report about a week and a half or so ago. There has been some good progress in addressing homelessness in Ottawa, but as the report makes clear, there are a number of groups who are still not being well served. Ray Sullivan is with CCOC, an organization that I admire very much, and he wrapped up that report launch with some fairly challenging words for the city. Let's take a look.
So what do we want the next report to say in 2017? So we all want to see inclusive, healthy communities where everyone has access to a decent home that they can afford. And the question we have to ask is, how do we get from here to there? And the answer, halfway through our own 10-year plan on housing and homelessness in the city of Ottawa, is we've got to try harder. We've got to use all of the tools that are available to us, and that's the only way we're going to make progress. on this difficult and long-standing problem. Thank you very much.
Another little clip I thought I would include this week. The 8th annual McKellar Park Egg Hunt happened last weekend. I went out to shoot a little bit of video for that. That was a blast. A couple of hundred kids went out to find eggs that were hidden all over McKellar Park. It's organized by the McKellar Park Community Association. Let's take a look at some of the excitement around that event. And also, finally, last week, my Urban Caucus colleagues, Councillors McKenney, Fleury, Chernushenko, and McKenney, and I sponsored a talk, a zero waste talk, featuring Bea Johnson. Bea has written a book about the zero waste lifestyle, and she presented to a packed presentation last week to talk about how her journey to a zero waste lifestyle. She puts out literally a small mason jar of waste every year, and she talked to a very large group of people about how she got to that point. Let's take a look at some of that.
I tested a lot of things. There was no guide on how to live a zero waste lifestyle, so I had to test a lot of alternatives. And for example, I decided one day that enough was enough. I was not going to buy any more can of tomato sauce. So I picked up the phone, called my mom. She lives in the south of France, and growing up, she had always canned our tomatoes, so I asked her to teach me how to can.
Kitchissippi, that's all I have for you this week. I do hope you enjoy a great week. I will see many of you at the April 25th public meeting on the Spencer bike lanes / parking removal, and I hope to see you at my pop-up next week as well. Have a great week, Kitchissippi.